Nathan, this episode of TFL Talkin Trucks is all about van life.
Van life is changing, y'all.
Yes, it's actually growing, not just in popularity, but also in the number of vans you will be able to choose from very soon.
That's right, and what we're going to do is we're going to take you through some of the current vans that are out there, but more importantly, some of the future vans that are coming right around the corner.
And why is this a truck show? Well, first of all, we're talking about a lot of commercial vans.
That's right.
Right, these are delivery vehicles. Sometimes they can be used for many purposes.
RVs.
Yes, motorhomes. But also, some of them have new propulsion systems, electric,
Right.
maybe some hybrid technologies, coming up through here. So I think that's very interesting because the van life is evolving.
It is evolving, and think about it this way, the stuff that they're building right now for the industry will, in some ways, trickle down to the consumer. So you might actually see some of this tech coming to you in the very near future.
And we're talking both brand new startup companies that are just starting up,
Right.
and also major legacy manufacturers that are also jumping in.
Yep, that's right, just like Mitsubishi. I'm kidding.
Mitsubishi. Wait, what was that four-wheel drive van they had?
Oh yeah, So let's move on.
Congratulations, you have now tuned into TFL Talk, where we discuss everything automotive, whether it's cars or trucks. This is the one place where you can be sure to get independent and honest reviews. Let's get back to the show right now.
All right, dude, so let's go alphabetically, okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's go alphabetically. So let's start with Amazon Rivian. And I put them first because Amazon basically ordered about 100,000 vans from Rivian. Rivian is a brand new company.
Yeah, they are.
And they also invested into Rivian, Amazon, about $600 million. This was back
A couple years ago.
almost a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Yes.
So a couple things to keep in mind. First of all, this list is somewhat alphabetical, so we're not necessarily saying one is more important than the other. Although this is a pretty big deal because Rivian's a very interesting company. They kind of came out of nowhere a few years ago. As you guys may know, they're building a electric SUV and pickup truck, and we are covering those. But this is different. Not only is it different, but strangely, Rivian got a major injection of money, like $500 million from Ford. But this is not a Ford product.
No, it's a true Rivian built, using their electric systems, batteries, motors, and it's also branded as Amazon. And not just on the outside. If you go inside this van, and we have some images. So if you want to watch this, you can go to TFL Talk on YouTube channel for our podcasts, or of course you can listen. But when you go inside this van, and it's not quiet on the market yet, right? They're testing.
They're doing beta testing now. We've actually seen them drive around.
But you can see images here behind me also. The steering wheel says Amazon.
Yeah.
So it's actually branded Amazon.
Well, just in case somebody from, UPS or FedEx tries to steal the steering wheel, they know, this is an Amazon truck. Now, here's the thing. Amazon has been using a lot of other people to do the deliveries for them, and the whole point here is that they want to own that industry as well. And in doing so, they want to reinvent the delivery industry, which is interesting. One of the aspects of this vehicle, you're going to hear a lot of this throughout this broadcast, is the skateboard platform. That is specifically built by Rivian, and the batteries and sort of the frame of the vehicle are all incorporated in a very low-slung component that sits underneath the driver and cargo, and it means that a lot of the weight is really, really low, which is very good for tall vehicles. And on top of that, it's great for moving packages in and out of the vehicle because you have a low load-in height.
Yeah, that's very important because we get a lot of packages delivered here at our HQ.
Yes, we do.
And some of those FedEx or EPS vans are very big, very tall. And imagine going up and down the stairs,
Or a massive ramp that you got to deploy each time that's just really, really long. And it's something to be said about just a foot less in height is a really big deal for somebody who has to do that all the time. And on top of that, you are talking about a vehicle that's more aerodynamic, and because it's electric, it will have a somewhat limited range. In this case, it's supposed to have a 150-mile range. And that may not seem like a lot to you guys, but a lot of research has been done by these companies to say that that is more than adequate.
Yeah, and we'll go through it for each manufacturer, right?
Exactly.
Because they're each kind of pointing their van. Some prioritize payload, a little bit more payload, some range. 150 miles should be good if you think about like a hub, like a warehouse, and driving around the city, right?
Right, you go around the city, you do your first round, which let's say is 90 miles or whatever, hitting everything. You go back, you plug it in, an hour later you're good to go, and you're at nearly full charge. Bear in mind that a lot of the things you're going to see here, we don't know exactly what the logistics are for some of these vans that are about to come out. However, what we do know is that the big players for delivery are almost all of them, at least, are doing special vans.
Yeah, and of course, Rivian has a unique style. It's got those round headlights,
Which look pretty cool, actually, very futuristic.
Kind of, and also kind of cute. You wouldn't, I wouldn't you normally call a van cute, but it almost has kind of a human quality to it.
Well, at the very least, it doesn't look like it's an ugly van. I think it's
Or a box, for
Yeah,
that matter.
and who knows? Rivian may take this design with permission from Mr. Bezos, who we all love, and maybe they'll make an RV version of this. Who knows? So anyway, we should probably move on to Arrival, which is working with UPS, direct competitors to this Amazon Rivian van.
So I haven't heard a lot about Arrival. So what's the deal with this company?
So overseas, Arrival is a UK or European-based company, and they're getting an investment of $100 million from UPS. They just signed a deal to buy 10,000 units, and these are electric vans similar to the idea behind the Amazon vans. And they are starting now, and deliveries will go up to 2024. Now, if this van is successful, and if they prove it to be a good working product, they're going to order another 10,000. So it's not quite as broad as the Amazon
order,
deal,
yeah.
but it could get there. Now, this also could mean vehicles in the United States. They have not ruled that out. If they do come to the United States, they will have a range, according to them, of 150 miles. So same as that other one. We do not know exactly what this van will entail in terms of overall charge times and whether or not it's going to have a certain payload or anything else. We just don't know those numbers yet. However, from what I've been told, basically think of a medium-sized UPS van that's currently out there, and this is the equivalent.
Yeah, and I have one image here behind me as well. And I think one quality similar to the Amazon van is very low.
Extremely
right?
low.
This
Skateboard
van,
platform.
So it's not really, for deliveries, into the middle of, nowhere, to people who live, off the grid. So, but this is more for cities, and those environments.
Now, why is that? And there's a simple reason, and it actually has to do with London. London is one of the first major cities that will basically outlaw internal combustion engines in the very near future. And it's forcing a lot of these companies to comply with that, saying, okay, we're going to have an electric van that's going to go and do the deliveries throughout that city. And they were one of the first large cities, that is. And then it just multiplied from there. Within the next 10 years, we expect to see a huge number of large cities, Beijing, Tokyo, you name it, that will outlaw internal combustion engines and force people to use electric vehicles. So you're going to see more of these vans doing deliveries, most likely in the United States as well. I'm assuming Los Angeles, New York will probably be two of the first cities that will
big
adopt
cities.
that.
Yeah,
I would
absolutely.
imagine so. And so that's why you're seeing this big push towards electrification for these delivery vans. And speaking of which, the next one on our list is a very interesting company.
Yeah.
And they're called Canoo, C-A-N-O-O vans. Now, why are they significant, Andre?
Well, it's a new company, actually out of LA. So now this is a US-based company.
That's right, bruh.
And they have also quite a lot of investments coming in.
Oh, yeah.
And they actually, if you've seen some videos out there on YouTube, of kind of a pod-looking vehicle. So this is meant to be as a taxi.
Right.
But this is not what we're talking about. But that's also a canoe-based vehicle, which is like subscription model, where you can actually not rent it, but it's like a lease, right?
Right, you pay into it until you don't need it anymore, basically.
Right. But then they said, oh, by the way, we can make other products, other vehicles based on this.
Based on the same technology that they're using. Once again, a skateboard platform. And they got a major, major investment from Hyundai Motor Group. Now, keep in mind, this isn't just an investment, it's actually a partnership. And what they're doing with Hyundai is they're using this technology to further expand Hyundai's reach into EV electrification, but also Canoo's ability to build lots of different vehicles, including delivery vans.
Yeah, and I have a couple of pictures here. I pulled up TFLtruck.com as always. All of these stories are actually you can find on our website, TFL
That's right.
Truck. And this van has a different style, right? It's a little bit more square, rectangular, and it has more of a utilitarian kind of industrial feeling to me.
Yeah.
But actually, that's not bad either.
No, it's not. It's a very simple design, but it still looks like it's actually pretty well thought out. I kind of like it. The thing is, now we do have a couple of tidbits on this vehicle. Their vans are slated to have an up to 80 kilowatt hour battery and up to a 250 mile range. Now, bear in mind the ranges that we're talking about. We don't know if that's fully loaded or not. That's with all the vehicles that are on this list. But this is what the manufacturers are saying. According to Canoo's website, it's a front-wheel drive van, and it'll have two different sizes. Up to 200 horsepower and 236 pound-feet of torque, which doesn't sound like a lot, but remember, we are talking about a delivery van that's based on an electric platform, so you get maximum torque right off the bat, and you really don't need it to be super high-powered, right?
Yeah, and a lot of so I actually watched the debut of this van virtually. And they did talk about the initial sizing, the smaller sizes, right?
Right.
And they talked about being, used as like in the food industry, like a taco truck, or
Ice cream truck, baby.
ice cream truck,
Yeah.
something like this. By the way, they need probably a new jingle for this van.
Well, yeah, it's got to be like an electric guitar instead of some stupid little bell.
But so couple of things. So the Rivian, the Amazon van, and to some extent their rival, were kind of communicated as one size,
Right.
for those particular vans. Now Canoo and some other companies are talking about different sizes, different weight categories, right? So that's really important. And of course, a lot of these vans you can actually stand up in, right? So not just for deliveries and bringing packages out, but you can actually cook in the van, for example.
Now, there's one important point about Canoo as opposed to the other two companies we just covered, and that is that Canoo is building a small van, what Andre talked about, that pod, which will be for public consumption. So it's not that wild of an idea to think that they might build something like this type of van and build it in an RV form or something like that, or a van form that you can buy as a plumber or whatever. This could be great news. But there's another van on this list that, although there aren't a lot of tidbits about this vehicle because it's not in existence yet, could also be right there with the Canoo vans, and that is Bollinger.
Yeah, before we move on to Bollinger, really quickly, Canoo, and I have a few more numbers, and I think it's important until we get later to some other manufacturers. We're talking about up to about 2,000 pounds of payload with Canoo vans.
Yeah, that's the big one, right?
Yeah, that's a slightly bigger one. And like you said, the ranges, driving ranges are up to about 230 miles. And also volumes are up to about 450 cubic feet.
Right.
So that's kind of to give you an idea about kind of approximately what we're talking about. And Canoo also set starting price.
Oh, they did? Okay.
Some of the other companies don't communicate prices.
Right.
Canoo said 33,000. 33, this is fairly affordable.
That's extremely affordable.
For the most smallest basic van, okay?
Yeah.
Not the bigger one.
But under the circumstances for an all-EV van, I mean, provided that the range is decent, I think regular people would buy that and shove some seats in there and, nope, you're done. You got yourself an electric commuter.
Yeah, and they teased an Overlander too. They teased an image of it.
Yeah. So that's something very different, though, that Overlander that they have. That's based on a different platform. But and if you go to the website, you can actually see a lot of this stuff. One more thing to keep in mind is that Canoo vans will be working with Waymo. Waymo has worked before with FCA, now Stellantis, and some other companies. And Waymo does autonomous driving and semi-autonomous driving. So they will be incorporated with this and other vans that are on this list, but we just don't know to what extent.
Yeah, and Waymo, I'm sorry, mispronounced it.
That's right.
There's several companies that compete in that space.
Right.
And they're mostly kind of software and like radar system integrators, right?
Right.
So they don't actually make the potential vehicle, right?
No.
They add sensors to them and actually software to actually enable them to drive potentially autonomous.
Right. Actually, for a while there, they were using Chrysler Pacifica hybrids, and you could clearly see it because there's a large component added to the roof of the vehicle, and then other sensors hanging off the sides and whatnot. And I am guessing that over time they'll be able to refine that look and make it a much more simple design. But regardless, we don't know to what extent it will be autonomous. But I think semi-autonomous is a fair bet, considering that right now level 2 is pretty easy to achieve for a lot of car companies. So
Yeah.
I'm guessing it's going to go up a notch or two. So should we move on to Bollinger now?
Yeah, let's do it. So Bollinger announced this concept, and this was in August of 2020. So this was a while ago.
Yeah, he's your buddy.
I interviewed Robert Bollinger, the CEO of the company, about this van. And I actually visited them because they're also building and designing four-wheel drive off-road vehicles.
Yeah, a pickup
trucks.
truck and a large SUV.
Yeah.
And these are beefy, large, very square vehicles.
But this is not it. This
Nope.
is a Deliver E.
Yeah, it's called the Deliver E van, which is very clever. Now, there's a couple different things about this van as opposed to the other ones in terms of the numbers that have been produced. Bear in mind that as far as we know, there are no working versions of this van. This is just concept and sketch. But what they're talking about doing is creating a van that can be Class 2B, 3, 4, and 5, which is, so far, none of these other van companies have discussed doing that. Front-wheel drive van, very low to the ground. And there's potential here for some serious range, because what he's looking at doing, if he does this, is have a bunch of different sizes, including battery sizes that go from 70 kilowatt hours, 105, 140, 175, all the way up to 210 kilowatt hour.
Yeah, massive batteries.
That's a huge battery.
And also, like you said, Class 4 and Class 5, those are weight classes, right?
Yes.
Weight ratings. And these gross vehicle weight ratings could go up to like 16 or 19,000 pounds. That's including the weight of the vehicle.
That is correct.
Which means you can bring a lot of payload with you.
Potentially.
You know, heavy things.
Right.
But how far can you go on the charge? We don't know, because, you know, they really haven't. First of all, there's, you know, as you said, there's probably not like a running prototype yet. And if there is, we don't know about it.
We don't know about it, right.
And of course, they're using some of their know-how and technology from their four-wheel drive vehicles.
Which do exist, and
Yeah.
they do have runners out there.
And they do have prototypes, and they're using it for this van, which I think is pretty clever. But once again, we want to see more prototypes like this actually running.
Yes, and Andre wants to drive them, so do I actually.
Yeah.
So, to the leaders of all these companies, please bring us out there and we'll bring you a video crew and film them.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move. Should we move on to the next one?
Yeah, let's go.
Okay, the next one, a direct competitor to Arrival, UPS, and Amazon Rivian is GM, who's working with Bright Drop EV to build the Bright Drop EV 600.
Yes,
there you
dude.
have it right there.
So they dropped it during CES, so the virtual
Bright
conference.
Drop dropped it. He said it. He
Yeah,
said it.
Yeah, I know, I'm clever. This was a surprise to me. I did not expect this.
Nobody did. Everybody was really surprised by
So
this.
basically, Bright Drop is like a sub-company underneath the GM umbrella.
Right.
And instead of like taking the old Chevy Express and the GMC Savannah van and shoving batteries into it,
Horrible idea.
this is a whole new kind of design.
Big time. Not only, but it uses a lot of GM tech that's already been developed by them, including the Ultimate batteries. And this van is pretty big. It looks a lot bigger, actually, just in terms of its overall size than a lot of the other ones on our list. And it's out there. They are beta testing it. So it does exist to some degree. It will have a maximum payload capacity of 2,200 pounds, which may not sound like a lot, but that's actually an average, I looked it up, for a lot of delivery vans. So it's right up there with those. So it's a skateboard battery platform, the Ultimate platform.
Once again, yeah.
Yeah, and unlike the other vans, this one will be all-wheel drive.
Yeah, and also, I mean, the Ultium infrastructure and chassis also underpins the new Hummer EV.
Right, but it
So-
won't be as off-road capable.
Right, no. So don't picture a van, you know, that's 16 inches off the ground with giant 37s.
Oh, but how cool would that be? How cool would that be?
Right, this is not it. Because the Ultium platform is, you know, really just adaptable, right? They can build a sports car off of it.
Right.
They can build a van off of it. They can build
It's a modular platform
Yeah.
that can do almost anything in terms of what and the GM is putting billions into this.
Yeah.
Because they're about to switch over to all electrification in the very near future.
Yeah, they said by like 2035 they want to stop making internal combustion vehicles.
Yeah. Put your comments below.
Which is what, 16 years away?
It's not far away.
14 years away. So that seems quite drastic to me. Anyway,
Yeah.
so but it's called EV600. 600 stands for the cubic feet, right, of the volume.
Of the volume,
of
yes.
the volume that this van has. So this is bigger than the Canoe van, and bigger maybe than some others that we talked about.
Right. I'm willing to bet that it's probably on par with the Amazon van.
Probably
Just
close.
thinking about
And
it.
the Bollinger, yeah.
And it's going to be interesting to see what GM does. But out of all the competitors out there, GM already has this platform that's working. They already have the batteries that's working. They already have the powertrain that is working. So it's going to be interesting to see how they attack this. But what's more interesting to me, Andre, is how other car companies, major players, are taking on EV vans, because it's very different for some of these other guys.
Yeah, and before we move on from this General Motors van, the Bright Drop company, they communicated a few other pieces of information.
Okay, go for it.
So they said 170 miles of range can be gained using fast charging in about an hour. So it's got fast charging capabilities.
But it has a much larger range without that.
250 miles on
Total.
the full, yes, as you were saying. They also are working on kind of the whole ecosystem, right? So little carts with little electric motors.
Yeah, that
so you can actually
buzz
push,
around.
Yeah, buzz around the warehouse and kind of the software that ties it all together, right? So they're thinking not just about the van, but also how does that van, how does it communicate with the warehouse, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, how to make the worker of that van the most efficient out there. And one interesting thing, when you think about 1 hour will give you 170 miles, why is that a big deal? Well, when you bring your van back to the warehouse or to your main hub, and you're filling that van up, it takes time. So while it's being loaded and it's plugged in, by the time it's done, you're ready to go on a nearly full charge and you're hitting 170 miles. That's from empty, by the way, in 1 hour. So that's pretty impressive. You're able to go out there and do that. I think that might be a really efficient way of doing it, but I'm not 100% sure. It could.
Well, we haven't driven these vans.
Exactly, so we just don't know for sure.
Yeah, and of course, if you're saying, this will not work for an RV, well, we're not quite talking about that yet, right?
Not yet, but remember, this trickles down. So over time, ranges will extend, batteries will become lighter and cheaper, and who knows?
Yeah, and maybe you can plug in Moab somewhere.
Or you know what you could do?
What?
You could take an existing platform and electrify it.
Oh, you mean like Ford?
Like Ford! Yeah, finally, you got that one. Okay, so Ford is another one that's playing this game in a real serious way, but they're being a lot more pragmatic, I think, than the other companies in terms of investment, time, and having a product that's ready to go. Ford's 2022 Ford E-Transit, that's the proper name for it, is based on a regular Transit, which is a proper large van, and then they're taking electric technology and putting it into the van. So you have the platform and the body and a lot of the components out of the current van, and then on top of that, you're adding electricity, which is interesting and probably a lot less expensive to develop.
Well, and also, this was announced in November 2020, and this E-Transit, and Ford is going after this big time also, because they're seeing other companies emerging.
Yeah, they're not going to. They don't like being in second place.
And one thing they said is, and if you look at it, here's an image. It looks almost identical to the current Transit, like you said.
Yeah.
The only thing is different is like the grille, and there's a little charge port right below the emblem.
Yeah, you have to look real carefully because they kind of hide it.
Yeah, so it's not flashy, it's not cute or big or square, right? It looks identical to the current van, but there is method to this, right?
Yes.
And the method is that people who already modify these vans and equip them with extra
upfitters and whatnot,
upfitters, with shelving and other equipment and beds, they have all the measurements already.
Right.
They don't want to redo all of their accessories and all this stuff. So Ford is hoping this van has the same interior dimensions, right, and exterior, some of the exterior dimensions as the other regular transit vans. So you can equip it with ladders and racks and shelves and just good to go.
According to Ford, this van will have up to 126-mile range. Now, there are a couple things to keep in mind. Once again, have to mention this. We don't know if that's loaded or unloaded. And on top of that, this vehicle will have a couple different sizes, actually several different sizes. So just like the regular transit van, there are different wheelbases and different roof heights available. And it'll be exactly the same thing with the EV version.
Yeah, and they also actually specified power numbers, so 266 horsepower. They talked about charging. It said about 45 miles of range in about 15 minutes.
Okay, that's not
as
bad.
far as charging. And they also talked about with a lot of commercial people who do either small business deliveries, etc. Sometimes they take their vans home. So you have to be able to, not just use it for work, but when you're resting, it's actually at home and maybe able to charge at home.
So you can plug it in 110 and 220.
Right. And the range is actually less than the other vans, right?
Yes.
But they did research, and of course they talked about this, is that should be enough for most jobs. I mean, that's according to them.
Yeah,
So-
and there's another thing here to keep in mind, and I don't think they announced pricing yet, did they?
No, but they did say that they want this to be on sale like within a year and a half. So it's coming soon.
Yeah, and that was announced a little while ago, so we're talking about within a year now,
Yeah,
I guess.
yeah.
Although COVID could back things up. But the thing is that I'm going to assume, and I'm Andre, I think you'll agree with me, that because they're already using an existing platform and a lot of existing technology, they'll be able to undercut bulk sales from the others that are developing ground-up vans, right?
Yeah, and they'll, of course, like GM and Ford and Mercedes, which is next.
Yeah.
They also have an established dealership network.
That's correct.
Right, where you can fix, repair, charge, anything. So Ford has like over 3,000 dealerships in North America or US.
Now, I guarantee you some of those dealerships will not be happy about electric vans.
Or will they sell them? So it's not
That's
every
a question.
dealer. Probably not every dealer will be equipped to sell an electric vehicle. But still, that's a big network
massive.
of dealerships.
All right, should we move on and quickly cover a couple of these who may or may not be playing? Now, by the way, we did talk about GM. Yes, they're still building their Savannah van, by the way.
And selling them in express vans.
Which is crazy because that's ancient.
But by the way, Ford is still building the E-Series.
Which is hard to find, by the way. But they are the main van they build is the Transit, and
Yeah, the E-Series for them, and a lot of people have questions about this. Why build the E-Series when the Transit is there?
Right.
Well, the E-Series is actually a heavier platform. It's able to support more weight, and right now it's only used for motorhomes, basically. So it's a cutaway chassis, which means you kind of have the cab structure, and then you can attach the motorhome bodies and also shuttles, like airport shuttle vans. You can use it for that.
Okay, let's move on to Hyundai, yeah?
Yeah, let's go.
So Hyundai Kia, first of all, nothing announced from the United States, but we did mention earlier about Canoo, and Hyundai is invested in Canoo. So you can assume that they're going to be working with them. And by the way, for those of you who are curious, recently Hyundai bought into Boston Dynamics, and they build robots. So we're going to have transforming vans that are going to take over the world with robotic brains, sponsored by Hyundai. I actually think it's really cool, actually, Boston Dynamics.
I don't know how they're going to combine this. I don't know if they're going to transform, but I do know that, wow, this was a while ago. This was 2015, dude. So we have some of our viewers send us spy images of prototypes.
And
this was actually in public. It's a van that looks like a van available overseas, testing in the United States. And it's a giant van like a Sprinter high roof or a Transit high roof.
Right, and they have a lot of these overseas. Now, bear in mind that a lot of automakers come to the United States to test their vehicles, but not necessarily sell them here. We've seen it time and time again. So that's probably what's happening here. But this could be an interesting platform that we might see again.
Yeah, and of course it looks modern. Even back then it looked modern.
Yeah.
So maybe, who knows?
Who knows?
Yeah. So we don't know. We don't know about this one.
Now, what we do know is that the 2022 Mercedes-Benz e-Sprinter is there. It's actually in existence, and it's known as the e-Sprinter 2.0.
Yeah, it is. And so here's the thing with Mercedes, right? They've been selling electric sprinters in Europe.
Yeah.
For maybe a couple of years, several years, and it wasn't available in the U.S.
Correct.
So now this is the next generation of their platform. It still looks like a sprinter van. So
Yep.
if you saw it on the street, you may not realize it was electric, unless it is very quiet,
Yeah.
obviously. But the 2.0 is basically kind of how the batteries fit into the chassis, different battery sizes,
Right.
different lengths, different heights. So all of that.
Wouldn't you say it's very similar in terms of the idea to the Ford Transit?
I think so, because it's kind of using the current footprint.
Right.
Right. So you don't have to modify the accessories. You don't have to redesign everything. But on our website, we have some information about this. And of course, Mercedes is looking into it for many, many uses, right? Like a refrigeration unit for delivering groceries,
Right.
A little pickup truck, van, or a shuttle service, or even an ambulance.
Right.
So that's what they're looking at.
Right, and Mercedes has been in the van business for a long time, but in the United States, only recently did they start fully building their vans here. Before then, they had to disassemble them overseas, bring them over here and reassemble them and sell them, which was actually cheaper than having to pay the chicken tax. Now, they're fully assembling their vans here, so it's very possible that we will see an e-Sprinter in the States in the near future.
Yeah, and they said they have intention of bringing it here.
Right.
And also, they're talking about for kind of shorter distances. So I think their mind is similar to where Ford's mind is.
Right, 126 miles or whatever it was, yeah.
They didn't specify exact mileage.
Right.
But I think they're talking about big city deliveries, but short distances, not long distance driving.
Yeah, which once again is the Achilles heel for EV platforms. So let's move on to Nissan, because it's a big question mark with Nissan.
Yeah, what is going on with it? I mean, they have recently announced discontinuation of, they're going to discontinue the NV
Yeah,
vans.
which is a brilliant van, by the way. Really good, solid, proper old school van. And they do have the Nissan NV200, which is their small van, which currently has a little four-cylinder engine, a little CVT, very simple, basic, inexpensive van. But they also have an electric version of that van overseas. I even drove a prototype myself. I got to drive a prototype of one of those.
Nice.
Basically had a Nissan Leaf powertrain in it, and it worked just fine. Once again, built for short distances. The question is, will Nissan compete in this league here in the United States? They haven't answered that question. At this point, they're discontinuing at least one of their vans, possibly both. And we just don't know if there's going to be a follow-up or if there's going to be any type of change. Nissan is going through a lot right now. They're changing a lot of personnel. They're changing a lot of their components.
Well, they changed their logo.
Yeah, there you go. That's it. They changed the logo. Everything else is going to change. But on top of that, they're definitely going through some growing pains. And because of that, we honestly do not know whether or not they're going to bring their overseas electric vehicles, vans specifically, here to the United States. At least we don't know yet.
Yeah, but they're very busy, right?
Oh, yeah.
So they recently launched the Aria electric SUV crossover, and it's coming to the U.S.
Oh, yeah.
They're launching, or they have just launched the new Frontier and the Pathfinder.
And the Nissan Pathfinder, which, by the way, we've covered on TFL Truck and TFL Car.
Yeah, and they also just updated the Armada, the Sentra, you name it. I mean, they're very busy to kind of redesigning a lot of them.
And I think what they're doing is they're also trying to regain public trust. So there's going to be some components that are going to be changed in the future, but you'll have to stay tuned for that.
Should we talk about RAM?
Yes, we should, because Stellantis slash FCA.
Yes.
It's now Stellantis officially.
It is now
It really
officially
is. But for a while it's going to take time to not say FCA anymore. Anyway, Stellantis, who is in partnership with Fiat Chrysler and all that, we don't know exactly what they have coming to our market, but this is what we do know. Currently, Ram is building the ProMaster and the ProMaster City. Okay, decent vans, front-wheel drive based. Overseas, Fiat Ram is building the Fiat e-Ducato, which is a cool electric van, right?
Yes, and you know what? The Ducato and the e-Ducato is basically a ProMaster with a different face.
Precisely, and
Yeah.
obviously electric.
Now I said electric. So and they have said that e-Ducato was supposed to be available overseas, and at the end of 2020 it was on sale.
Yeah.
And so why not bring it here?
That's a huge question because they already have the development. They've already done all the, all the sweat, all the, requirements to get it up to a certain point. Why not bring it here? So suddenly we decided, oh, well, let's look and see what Peugeot has. Guess what? Peugeot's got a ton. Stellantis is going to be run basically by Peugeot. And Peugeot has a bunch of electric vans overseas as well. So it's entirely possible, I mean, they've already got them, that we may see products from Stellantis here in the United States that will range from large vans, electric, like the ProMaster, all the way down to smaller vans, like the Peugeot vans that they have available there as well, which are about the size, almost down to the size of a ProMaster City.
Yeah, and all of them may not be electric. I mean, they may, for a while, build gas-powered vans, etc.
Yeah, FCA pioneered a really good plug-in hybrid system, and it's being used in a minivan right now, and it works quite well. So why not, bump it up a little bit in terms of capacity, make it into something for a delivery van? That is entirely possible as well. Once again, they haven't announced anything. We just know what the products are overseas and the potential. So we'll see.
Yeah, and actually the e-Ducato is much more handsome, I think, than the ProMaster.
Yeah, it's got a cooler looking face, that's for sure.
Yeah, so...
But I mean, it doesn't really matter. Aesthetics don't really matter with delivery vans that much, do they?
No, but I'm thinking further. I'm thinking like for
Motorhome.
personal use. Yeah.
Andre wants a real cool overlanding motorhome. We know that.
And also a lot of these vans, and we haven't really mentioned it, yes, but Ford did, for example, is you can have export power.
Right.
So which means, let's say it's a food truck, right? You get somewhere to your location, plug in your grills or plug in your kitchen, and actually cook without having a generator running behind you, right?
Which is great unless you use too much electricity. But then again, if you're smart enough and actually monitor it, then you'll be fine. But the point is that you'll be able to do it without using a little gas generator or anything else to have to power it. You just plug it in. And Ford, their tech is pretty damn good when it comes to hybrid tech at a work site plugging in. So
we know this already.
We know this for sure because we've done it with the hybrid pickup truck, the F-150. So it's interesting to see what all of these companies will come up with in that realm. So let's talk about Toyota real quick.
Yeah, what's up with Toyota?
Nothing. Not a damn thing here in the States. As a matter of fact, Toyota's been really resistant about producing electric vehicles in general for public consumption. They have some stuff going on, but not a lot. But there is something, Andre. A little while ago, Toyota went on a world broadcast to talk about future products.
Yep.
And what they showed in the background were a whole bunch of vehicles that were shrouded so you could see their silhouette, but you couldn't really see what they were. And they're all supposed to be electric vehicles. And amongst those vehicles was a very square-looking vehicle, which looks like a van. Unfortunately, it looks a little bit more like a minivan. And the thing is that overseas, Toyota's got a ton of vans running around, and they are absolutely at the forefront of hybrid technology.
And they were, yeah, absolutely.
So the idea of a hybrid van competing in this large segment, I don't think is too much of a reach, right?
I would agree, but yeah, for example, like a year or two ago, I went down to Mexico on vacation. I landed in Cancun, and I saw dozens of Toyota vans everywhere.
Right.
And they're big shuttle vans and smaller vans. So I know they have the technology, obviously.
They have the technology.
They have a Sienna here, and it was redesigned. It's a minivan.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm not sure why they're not kind of interested in this kind of commercial and large vans.
Toyota is a real mystery when it comes to certain things and where their brain trust is on this. But at the same time, they have the technology. Actually, the Sienna alone, they only come as a hybrid, and then you can option it with all-wheel drive, which is electric powering the rear wheels. And that type of platform, stretch it out, make it into a van. I mean, it's a remarkably efficient platform. We were getting ridiculous mileage with the one we had for a couple days. So the potential is there. Whether or not they move that direction here in the United States remains to be seen.
Yeah, so what's next? Is there anything else?
Yep, there's one final vehicle on our list, and that is Volkswagen.
Yeah, so what's VW? I know they're in commercial business with vans overseas.
Overseas.
Right? They have the transporters.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
all bunch of stuff. But what's happened? There's not much happening here.
Not yet. Volkswagen is in a major transition mode here in the United States, at least, and that is moving over to all EVs, which they will be doing in the near future. Currently, they have a EV vehicle that's almost available here, and that is their small crossover ID4 or ID Cross.
And four.
And
No, ID4, yeah.
Well, yeah. And those vehicles are going to be all electric, and it's a new platform, MEB electric platform, whatever.
Yeah.
So another vehicle that they teased a couple of years ago was the ID Buzz. And that was a hipster, throwback, very cool looking electric minivan.
Yeah,
right?
remember we saw it at several auto shows.
Yes.
They had a little gnome that was rotating on the dash.
That was crazy. That was some psychedelic stuff going on there. It's a magnetic gnome that was floating that you could spin. It was when Germans are weird about stuff like that. Anyway, the point is that it was a really cool van, and the one that we saw had the availability for all-wheel drive, very flat platform, very, very roomy, lots of cool tech. And they said that they will build it, but that's been pushed back. Now, push that aside.
Mm-hmm.
Recently, Volkswagen showed a very interesting concept that they say they're intending to build, and that is known as the ID Buzz Cargo. And that's that van right there.
Yeah, so it has that similar look.
Right, it's got a retro look to
Yeah.
it, but it's still a van. And I love the fact that they're doing that because it just kind of livens things up. Now, this is unique because unlike that other van, this one is rear drive, and it'll have a payload of 1,760 pounds, at least currently. They've run a few of these around. In fact, even Pikes Peak had one of these things running up and down as a service vehicle.
Okay.
So, which is pretty cool, putting it up there. And according to Volkswagen, they want these vans in service within the next few years. And it's possible, they haven't announced it officially, that we'll see those vans here in the United States as well.
And this van, a little bit, I mean, it looks to me like a consumer-focused vehicle still.
Yeah,
I mean, I know
size-wise.
it can be used for work. It's fine. But, I mean, it is very kind of aerodynamic. It's a little bit smaller and much cuter.
Yeah, it's adorable. I mean, it really is. I would say, I've been next to it before, and it's bigger in terms of volume and capacity than a lot of the small vans like the NV200 we talked about, or the Ram ProMaster City, Transit Connect, those types of vans that are out there. This one looks like it actually could hold a little bit more, but more importantly, it is an all-electric platform.
Yeah, so as you can see, and we didn't even touch about some bigger vehicles like kind of semi-truck based or big buses.
Yeah.
We haven't even touched those.
Yeah, we haven't.
So as you can see, there's a lot of action in this segment.
Yeah, vans are about to have a minor explosion. And as we said before, the reason why we felt that this was important for you guys is because a lot of the technology that you're seeing that's being pushed into these industrial vehicles will trickle down. And you guys, the consumer, will benefit from it.
Yeah, and also you'll benefit because very soon one of these vans will bring your package.
Yes, silently. So you want,
Well, it's actually not perfectly silent, actually.
but by comparison, some of the ones that are cruising around my neighborhood, and during COVID, I'm sure all you guys have had this too. Man, it's like there's a fleet of trucks going up and down the street.
And they're
right?
diesel and they're loud.
Some of them are diesels and really loud. And what was really funny was I was actually on the phone with Roman, and a van came up to my house to make a delivery, and it was so damn loud I had to walk away from it. And it dawned on me, wow, I can't wait for these things to become electric so I don't have to do that. And sure enough, they are going to become electric, which will be great for certain people. And it will be interesting to tech, especially over the long run, to see how these vans do, how the battery life does, all that stuff.
Yeah, and of course, I mean, electric motors have been in industries for many, many decades, in fact.
Oh, yeah.
Electric trains.
Electric vans go all the way back to the turn of the century. I mean, we're talking like 1910.
Yeah, so, I mean, many, many decades. So it's not really a new technology, but it needs to prove itself, right?
Right.
Still, it needs to be reliable, dependable, because we're talking about, making deliveries on time, even ambulances. Right, if ambulance vans are electric, they have to have a standard of, really high standards, in fact.
Right, and so far, electric vehicles have proven to be fairly reliable, but
Yes.
there is range anxiety. And I would hate to be the guy in the ambulance where the driver's going, oh, I don't know, we only have 10% left and we've got another 10 miles to go. I don't know if we're going to make it. You know, especially if I'm hooked up to a heart monitor that's actually using the van battery, you know, as I'm progressively dying. So those types of things are a little scary, but I think that whether we like it or not, van technology, EV technology, those will work together, and eventually we're going to see a majority of vans out there all powered by electric energy.
Yeah, and actually there's a video clip of the new Rivian Amazon van.
Yeah.
Actually testing in Los Angeles areas.
Yeah.
Or Southern California. And they do have slow speed, like they emit the noise, this futuristic
Yeah, the
Jetson,
world.
The world. So, and a lot of people actually had negative comments about that.
Really, I don't mind it at all.
yeah.
I mean, the whole purpose of having noise is they're silent otherwise. And so if you walk out in traffic and you're not paying attention, you're going to get hit by something that you're not hearing. Although if you're deaf, then you're in trouble anyway. But the point, no, seriously, the point here is that having, I mean, even my little electric Leaf that my daughter drives, that makes noise, and it has to make a whirling noise of some sort. That way you can hear it, and that's really important for pedestrians.
And of course they can change that noise. I mean, to a certain extent. Of course there are standards, you know, there
Yeah.
are government regulations sometimes around this stuff. But I don't mind it. I think you could play around with it and have some fun. Even the ice cream truck, right?
Yeah.
You can have some fun with the noises.
Oh, imagine if you had like a big burly V8 sound with that the electric van. You pull up. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us. We really want to read your comments below, good or bad, about the future of vans. Write it below, and we do read our comments, so we're looking forward to seeing what you have to say.
Yeah, heck yeah. And of course, TFL Truck, like I mentioned, we have all these stories there with pictures
Yep.
and all this stuff. And TFLoffroad.com is, of course, our other channel and website. And we talk about usually overland topics there and
Yep.
kind of off-road topics. And a lot of those vans could actually be transformed into something overlanding.
We wrote a story, actually, on the canoe overlanding concept, which is on TFLoffroad.com. So check it out.
So there you have it.
All right, guys, thanks so much. We'll see you next time.